Hi, this is Hudson Mohawke. You're listening to Cabbage's podcast.
So I'm going through YouTube and looking for like anything I can talk about this movie that doesn't make me want to punch a hole through the wall.
Okay.
And I run into a Nick Swardson thing, and he said, well, I knew the critics were going to hate it because of the way we wrote it, directed it, and acted in it. Then why did you make the film? If you knew it was bad, like they made this bad film and then we're like mad at the critic. He said later on in the interview, they made fools out of themselves. Did they? Or did you make a fool out of yourself by being a tiny dicked, buck-toothed moron for 2 hours?
I think the point he's trying to make there is that this was never a movie for the critics. And I mean, a lot of bad movies, the idea is that it critically doesn't get
the movie was for no one, Gary. It was for no one. I hate this movie with my soul's fire. All of the fire in my innermost recesses of my soul were ignited by hatred to make like there were 4 very convenient endings to this film, and they just kept going and going, and they just kept doing things that made no sense. And there wasn't enough Kevin Nealon.
No, I mean, look, you clearly you watched it, and that's what's most important here.
No, I mean, I want to be on the podcast. I have to watch this piece of shit. That was the rule that was made.
Yes, of course. If you're going to be on this show, we have to watch the movies, and we agreed this season that we were going to go, back to back.
I think everybody understands the but I picked a movie that is like kind of famous for being bad and like watchable. You picked a movie that was pure vengeance. You did this to make me feel bad. And our poor guests, who we will introduce momentarily, had to suffer through this as well.
I mean, you say suffer. I mean, like, I think that you came into this with a pretty negative attitude from the start. I know you're not a big...
You came into Trimmers with a negative attitude. I wanted to watch this film the second we got off the air with Father. I was pumped. And this movie shit on me for an hour and 40 minutes. It took a huge dump on my head without my consent. How dare you?
Hello and welcome to the Cabbage's Hip Hop Podcast. I'm your host, Gary Suarez. I'm a music journalist and critic, and I write a twice-weekly hip-hop newsletter called Cabbages, which you can subscribe to for free at cabbageshiphop.com.
I also make Jeff watch terrible movies just to make him feel bad.
Joining me as always is my co-host, music industry insider and known grape eater, Jeffery Laughlin. It's season 4 of the podcast, and Jeff and I are engaged in bad movie battle. We're discussing cinematic flops, cult calamities, and all-around stinkers, trading off every episode to pick disreputable films with great guests joining us along the way. And so, as you've probably surmised, today we'll be talking about Bucky Larson, Born to be a Star, the 2011 sex comedy of which the New York Times said, quote, "This may be the worst movie Pauly Shore has ever been in." I'm so excited to introduce our guest for today's show. Joining us now is Hudson Mohawke. The Glasgow native is a giant in electronic music, recording albums for Warp Records under his solo moniker and as half of the duo Tonight. He's also made his mark in hip-hop, producing for the likes of Drake, Lil Wayne, Pusha T, and Kanye West. Also joining us today is Meagan Fredette. The New York City-based journalist's writing has appeared in such outlets as Refinery 29, Paper, Rolling Stone, and W Magazine, to name a few. Hello, and welcome to you both.
How's it going?
Thanks so much for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you both on this very special second episode of our season 4 Bad Movie Battle.
It's Gary's pleasure to have you here to talk about this film.
Well, Jeff, if you didn't want to have these guests on, you could have booked other people, but this
isn't about our wonderful guests, and how dare you frame me as such. This is about the film. Yeah.
And the film obviously is Bucky Larson, Born to be a Star. Now, the reason why this film was chosen in the first place, and actually one of the reasons why my interest in it first originated, was because it was from some of the same people behind Grandma's Boy, which is a quite successful cult film in the Happy Madison Productions Adam Sandler universe. Hudson Mohawke, I know you actually are quite a big fan of Grandma's Boy.
I think we've had several conversations around Grandma's Boy. Yeah, I remember getting it on like one of those weird pirate DVDs, 2005 or whenever the fuck it was.
Oh, like one of those CDRs.
Yeah, with like it was around the same time as like Team America and that kind of thing.
Yes.
And I remember not really knowing anything about anyone who was in it. And I guess it was like vaguely in the same vein as like some of those like old school and those kind of things. But it was just like a little more chaotic and a little more offensive. And I found it very deeply funny at the time and still do.
Yeah, I did a rewatch of it actually last night. I've watched that movie a ton of times. I did a rewatch last night. I popped a couple of weed gummies and just enjoyed it tremendously.
Yeah.
It holds up as a very ridiculous film.
Yeah.
And the key thing, again, why I bring it up is because it's more or less the same team. It's Alan Covert, who is like a day one Happy Madison person, like went to NYU with Adam Sandler. So it's Alan Covert, who appears also in a lot of the movies and starred in Grandma's Boy. Nick Swardson, who co-starred in Grandma's Boy, is also one of the writers on Grandma's Boy. But Bucky Larson, as I've learned, is an original idea from Adam Sandler himself.
Really?
Galaxy brain of Adam Sandler.
Yeah, so he started.
Really?
This is the galaxy.
This was his decision.
This was originally an idea that Sandler had for a while about this sort of Midwestern man-child who suddenly, through chance, decides he wants to be an adult film star. And that was basically an idea he'd been rattling around for years and years. And finally, he made it happen. He could greenlight it. Because at this point, this 2011 is when this one came out. Sandler was able to do pretty much whatever he wanted to do. This is post Grown Ups, which had been a huge success, having kind of Chris Rock, some of the old SNL people in there as the ensemble.
So yeah,
cast.
you're talking about the A team. The Adam Sandler movies are the A team, and these are the B team. The Sandler, like all the Sandler acolytes get together and are like, "We can do what Adam Sandler does. It's easy," and it's not.
But this is
It's
also
not.
Sandler's writing. This is Sandler's writing. He is one of the co-writers of this movie. It's Sandler, Covert, and Swardson.
Yeah, he loves his B team.
It was having quite a good run at that point. Again,
He was a really bankable star. And I mean, God, what was the name of the movie with he's the kid and he's got to go to school, but
yeah, of course. It starts with Billy Madison.
Billy Madison, that's right. And The Water Boy was great.
Waterboy still a favorite.
Still holds up.
Eminently rewatchable movies.
Yeah, and gets
For
the
a
wedding.
while in his career, he made just like movies you could put on at any time.
Exactly.
For food immediately. And that's a skill. That's like a really cool skill.
Yeah, he could kind of do no wrong in the mid to late 90s, between Billy Madison and like Big Daddy. Like that's
Right.
sort of like, then you got Wedding Singer in there, you've got Happy Gilmore in there. Like in that run, he pretty much just wins all day. And he was hugely likable coming off of SNL, and that works. And then like in the 2000s, it gets a little bit more interesting in that he starts doing a bit more romantic comedy stuff like 50 First Dates, but he also does things
Also a great movie.
Yeah, there's stuff like The Longest Yard, kind of as a remake of that. Click, which is a really bizarre film, but works really well. Great Christopher Walken performance. And then Grown Ups, and he does, I think so 2011, he does 2 movies that he stars in. He stars in Just Go With It with with Jennifer Aniston. And then he also does Jack and Jill that year, which is considered by many to be one of his worst films. Not as bad as The Cobbler, but still one of his worst films. Jeff, have you seen The Cobbler? You heard a real groan there.
Oh man, I tried the cobbler and I did not cobble. It did not work for me.
Did not have a good graham cracker crust.
It's total nonsense. I tried to figure it out. The first 30 minutes are like just wildly confusing and very bad. And that's when I stopped. I'm
Oh,
like, why am I doing
dear.
this to myself?
You know when a movie's bad, you just it feels masochistic to watch.
This movie I knew in 15 seconds that I no longer wish to watch the film.
Yes, yes.
When a goat blows a dude to start the film off,
Oh my god.
your pick, Gary, where a goat just like to introduce, listen, this is the introduction to the film. This is the first time
The
we are
intro
seeing
montage.
anything in the film. And we see someone we never see again get blown by a goat.
You know, it sets the tone from
Welcome
the
to
start.
film.
It sets the tone from the start.
To be fair, he does make some things happen in order to get the goat to blow him. He covers his dick in peanut butter.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to mischaracterize the brilliance of this scene.
Yeah, I'm
Tricks
really
the
glad that the
goat
camera
into
didn't ever
blowing
pan
him.
down. The camera did not pan down. We knew it was happening. I'm just glad that they spared us the visual.
But you get it from the start. Like that tone is
Yeah.
set. You're dealing with Midwest weirdos, crude humor. This is what this movie is. They're not trying to pretend it's anything but that. And it is exactly from there. It stays true to that tone pretty much throughout the film. That is the level of humor that we're getting. You know, when we meet Bucky for the first time and he's grocery bagging, it's about his teeth and his weird haircut. Like it wouldn't make sense if you put him in a normal world looking like that and sounding like that.
Doesn't make any sense.
It has to start in this weird like mid zone between realities where it's like that's just normal behavior. Morning, neighbor, I'm getting sucked off by a goat.
I watched the scene, which is essentially the opening salvo for our hero, where his manager talks himself into firing Bucky.
Right, for the crime.
How do you describe that scene? What happened?
I mean, he was just bagging his groceries and
Right.
decided to have a little chit chat with one of his, I guess, regular customers. It was this elderly lady, and I guess got fired for that. I'm not really sure. For just trying to be a nice, hospitable person. I think. Does that sound about right?
Hudson, can you describe what happened?
Yeah,
With any clarity?
I guess they're having a conversation. He's chatting a little too much, apparently, about how fantastic these fucking cool ranch chips are.
Yeah.
And
got to make their money somewhere. It didn't make
right, exactly. Until his manager Billy clubs himself over the head.
Okay, so I had to go back and watch this like 3 or 4 times because what actually happens is this dude is so disgusted by the like general life force of Bucky Larson, Born to Be a Star, that he like intentionally beats himself up.
Right.
And is not talking to anyone. He's just kind of talking to the air around Bucky. There are witnesses to what's happening, and he fires him, and everybody's like, you'll get him next time. I was so confused.
It's such a bizarre setup for this character. And I also found that the manager, the boss, his reaction to Bucky was sort of strangely overblown, but also kind of sets the tone for how much disdain every other character has.
Both of the managers in this are completely bonkers.
They're horrible human beings.
Just like, what is this based on? Is it a satire of a person, or are you creating people that we've never seen before?
But look, I mean, this is a gross out comedy, and we'll get into the details of that certainly along the way. We certainly started with the goat scene and the peanut butter, but like the person who plays his boss at the supermarket is Curtis Armstrong, who's Booger from the Revenge of the Nerds movies, and more recently he plays Snot
How far
on
the mighty
American
have
Dad.
fallen.
So like, but Curtis Armstrong is like a really funny guy. So his presence in this is sort of like he's blessing this movie with his legacy as one of the great gross out comedians of the 1980s. And
I mean, or he's getting paid in the Adam Sandler universe, which is the biggest one in the world. But okay, we'll go with the the one that paints this movie in a positive light.
And he plays this demented aggro character. The self-inflicted violence is a wonderful move that feels very improvised. It leaves questions in my mind of how does a clerk fire a bag boy. But the name of the place is called Fooders Grocery. And that to me is just the funniest generic name for a supermarket. Fooders Grocery.
Nothing matters. Nothing
That might have been
matters.
the only time that I laughed in the movie was when I saw that the sign said Fooders, because I'm from the Midwest and I could absolutely see.
Did you work at a Fooders?
I did not work at a
No.
Fooders.
Okay.
I mean, shopped at them, shoplifted from them, ran around midnight, because they were always open 24 hours, ran around at midnight past my curfew with my friends, looking at makeup and generic microwaves. So, I mean, great memories of places like that for sure.
Now, did you and your friends ever gather in the basement to watch films like The Farmer and the Smell and Welcome to the Stink?
Oh my God. No.
Yeah, how true is this experience for the Midwestern lifestyle?
I was okay. So I was actually going to ask you all that question. How common is it for guys to get in a room and watch porn together? Is that a thing that guys do at any point in their development? Because I don't know. What's the deal with that?
I think I did that a couple of times in school, like around 12, 13, 14 years old. When if it like only one person's folks have cable or something like that.
That's the thing, is that you get sucked in very large groups because like only one person around has access to this stuff.
Right.
But like just Thursday night, me and the fellas, no, we didn't watch porn together.
Yeah, but I mean that scene is also meant, the idea of like people who are like 11 years old. If you have 11-year-old boys who discover an older brother's DVD or VHS tape, that's one thing. And I think what that scene in this film where
and pre-internet,
Bucky
that
and
was
his
probably
pals,
a little more common.
Yeah, I think you have VHS tapes and the nature of that. Like, oh, the parents aren't home. We can sneak on a tape and like this has breasts in it, and very exciting for 11-year-old boys. But the thing,
the scattered cable where you have to make out a tit or something.
Oh
It's
yeah,
large and blue.
It was worth the.
But
it was
it's
worth
there.
the effort.
I'll tell you what, it's there.
It really was.
It's there.
That
I'm
was
gonna find it.
Very defining and childhood. But that scene is meant to really emphasize that all these guys are like stunted man children. Like they are all clearly like they have the understanding of the world that a 10 or 11-year-old or 12-year-old would have, and so they're getting excited about watching a nudie
quick
movie.
question. Are they 12 though? How old is Bucky Larson?
I got the sense that Bucky Larson was like, he looks like he's in his late 20s. I mean,
but also could be 12.
But also could be 12. And I think that's like, I think I'm going to touch on one of my central problems with Bucky as a character is that it's, first of all, it isn't explained how old he is, which I think is that would be a really fundamental thing to know, that I think would offer maybe slightly more insight into this character if there was insight to be gleaned. But I think the thing that irritated me the most is like you couldn't actually tell if he was developmentally delayed or on the spectrum, or if he was just extremely sheltered. And because you couldn't figure it out and it was never made clear, like it didn't feel good to laugh at him.
You would have had to have someone act in the film.
Right.
So that it was explained by their actions.
It's definitely not something you could make nowadays.
No.
Like I didn't want to laugh at this person. I mean, not that the character was even funny, but it's like even you know, like even if there was a funny moment, it's hard to laugh at this character if you're like, wow, like you know, like if this person's on the spectrum or something, like that's not funny, you know. But they said the R word so many times during the movie that like I just realized how cruel of a word that is, and how hard it is to hear. And
It
it's
took
like,
this film. You know what I mean? Like they really went all out to make
they
sure you
really
felt as
did.
uncomfortable as possible.
They really did. And it's just like, it's just, I don't know. It's
Definitely, I feel like if I had watched that and not kind of known the characters from Grandma's Boy, I probably would have been like, this is fucking horrendous.
He plays a
Yeah,
different but a similar
yeah.
character in Grandma's Boy, as he lives with his parents, Nick Swardson.
But he's also clearly like, you know, mid-20s or something in that.
oh, so this is a shtick for Nick Swardson. Cool, very cool, very very smart and creative. Great, awesome.
Well, this is a Sandler trope. I mean, like, how old is the Water Boy? How
The
old
Water
is
Boy is like 32.
Yeah, how old is Hubie and Hubie Halloween? Like, Sandler has played these sorts of, like, I don't want to say dim-witted necessarily, but has played these sorts of characters where you have these questions about their mental faculties and whether or not there is developmental disability in play, or if he's just doing a funny voice. But he's done that in so many movies that, like, when he's conceptualizing a character like this, again, this is a Sandler character that he's developed, how much of that just comes from this well of, well, he has to be sort of inept in order to have the people around him have something to react to.
That was kind of my point. Like, that makes it hard to laugh at him, because it's like, you know, the people around him are sort of bemused by his presence, and it's like, but the acting is so bad and the story's so bad that this bemusement, you can't tell if it comes from like, I'm trying to be kind to you because you are developmentally not quite there, or you're just an idiot. You can't tell. They just the way Adam Sandler writes these characters, they just blur into the same thing.
You know, obviously it's a farce, and it's definitely, there's meant to be extremes, but like, it also, the way in which he is presented, the way in which Bucky is presented, makes him somewhat sympathetic in a way that he might not otherwise be. Like, when they're making fun of his teeth, and everyone's so mean to him about his teeth, like he doesn't have enough problems and flaws, like everyone keeps focusing on that. Like, you just go like, oh, poor guy, he just can't catch a break.
Can't catch a break.
You know, which I think is part of why someone like Christina Ricci's character for Kathy becomes.
We're gonna get to my favorite question.
Go ahead.
Why was Christina Ricci there? I already know the answer, but I want to hear everybody else's answer for why is she there?
I mean,
what is the point of this person?
That
Her dream is to become a better waitress.
Yeah,
like,
that's a Sandler joke.
It's just, I don't even know what else to say except that it's not funny. It's just not funny. I will say though, I think Christina Ricci really, I think she absolutely stole the scene, and every time she was on the camera.
She was trying. So
her character was very endearing, and you know, like I worked in the service industry as a shift, like a shift server for several years.
Same.
And yeah, that scene where they ask her to clean the bathrooms, and yeah, that really just spoke to my soul. And how you're just sort of expected to just kind of say, well, all right, I guess this is what I got to do, and then you just go and do it.
Yeah.
We also forgot to discuss that, I guess, his parents being sort of like quite proud that he discovered their sex tapes, and sort of strange dynamic as well.
That is worth going back to. The sort of like,
yeah, let's go back.
When he
he's possibly 26 years old. He could be 34. We don't really know. Maybe it's just like, okay, dude, you're 34. You figure it out.
But the parents' reaction to it isn't a shock and horror, but like, well, yeah, you got us.
Like we
They
did
used
it.
to be big porn stars back in the day. Don't
Almost
you know?
like, oh well, here's the family secret. All right, well, we'll let you in.
It's secretly kind of a sex positive movie, like in a way that no one's really all that judgy over people having sex.
Yeah.
Right,
Is
right.
that they're just like, oh, well, that's amazing that you did that. But the parents are still like, maybe don't do this for the like 5 seconds that they get to react to him saying, I'm moving tomorrow to Hollywood to be a porn star.
But any trace of sex positivity, I think, is just completely demolished by the horrible euphemisms and jokes that they made, like especially during the scene where they're watching the porn. Yeah,
Brutal.
I
That's a
was
brutal
audibly retching and like wanting to die and not even understanding how like one of the actors said rubbing your skin flute after it gets stiff. I'm seeing a pair of love balloons, like as an actor, like how do you say that with a straight face? Because I can't say that without feeling my stomach
Gary, I think you might
like
be right.
curl against the wall.
You're just getting
Jesus.
the whole time.
I'm getting the impression that
You're
you're not
trying
a fan
so
of
hard
this
to
film.
talk about it as a movie, and we're just like, fuck that. It sucks.
Inflating your fun tool. Grabbing your joystick and tapping on your dirt button.
But like you saying it is wildly more funny than any of their deliveries.
Unfortunately, that shouldn't be the case, you know.
I did like the all the names for the various times of jacking off throughout the day. The pre-nap slap.
Fair enough.
It reminded me of when
the traffic jam slam.
But again, funnier when you guys say it.
But no, I'm getting a very clear sense of who didn't like this film, and I think that's clear. I laughed at a lot of this film and enjoyed it very much, and I want to get a sense of what positive things we can get out of this as well, because I think it's very clear the things that people didn't like right away. Like, so for me, like my favorite part of this movie is hands down any scene with Kevin Nealon in it.
Oh, the roommate, yes.
And not just because his name is Gary. Like I genuinely found
that's great.
His character just to be, just this deeply disturbed roommate from hell, and maybe one of the most unhinged characters to ever grace the big screen.
Extremely unhinged and psychotic, and I mean, there was the scene where he was like yelling at Bucky, and Bucky's lying in bed, but the camera is just like angular, like German expressionist and camera angle that just felt very. It felt like they were in on the joke in that scene, and I appreciated that because there weren't any other scenes that I felt like they were in on the joke, but that scene for sure.
You eat my grapes.
It would be really funny if we tilt this camera like now.
Did you eat my grapes?
Did you eat one of my grapes? One of my grapes.
One of my grapes. Is that why you're crying? That absolutely floored me. Grape. I was like, maybe if there were like 10 more of these, I would be fine with this film.
They gave this character this like more context than you expected. Like sometimes you see these cameos and like they're weird and they're done. And like he keeps coming back and like the themes kept being the same thing. The milk joke. The grapes came back.
Right, and then
hi Kathy, do you want some milk?
Is that your milk?
It's like fucking is John Bear Vendetta.
So he puts he turns the water on and puts that in his cereal, and yeah.
My last roommate wanted to be a rock star. He owes me 3 months rent. Fuck you, John Mayer.
He was a delight for most. I didn't love the scene where he jumps out of the closet. That was just completely pointless, and it wasn't all that funny. But the rest of his scenes were all classics.
There's just a lot of through lines through it. Like obviously, like the cereal milk bit, and then when Bucky starts making money off of his very successful line of, I guess, marital aids. I don't know what you want to call these films because he doesn't have sex in them.
Right.
It turns out he fills the fridge with milk, and he's quite amused by that. And of course, this is after the grape scene, and then it's like, well, then where the hell am I going to keep my fucking grapes? You insensitive prick.
Bucky he tries so hard. He filled the fridge up with milk, and it's like he can't even, and he's just trying to be a kind guy. And
it was a bit of cheeky fun, and
nice guy
and Kevin Nealon is just like, I'm not playing along. I hate you, which is awesome.
Yeah, of all the people who are mean to Bucky Larson in this film, he's the only one whose meanness to Bucky has like this depth to it that isn't about like Bucky's physical presence.
Right.
Like he makes a quick joke about teeth, I think, when they first meet, but it turns into like, no, actually, I've got bigger issues than you.
Right.
Anybody existing in my space is what's going to mess you up.
Like his anger and aggressive despair kind of flows outwards from him.
He's a roommate by necessity
in a very equal way. Whereas, like he would be mean to you regardless of whether or not
people that
you're
like
or not.
Absolutely should be living alone and is doing this out of like financial need.
Right.
But like will treat you like a piece of furniture the whole time.
Exactly. But also there's a lot of projection from that character. Like the scene where, the first scene when he's moved in and Bucky goes into the bathroom and finds Gary sitting on the toilet because his bathroom is his sanctuary. So that's why he can't shit where he showers. He can't do that. But as Bucky leaves the room, the best line,
He'll brush his teeth in the swimming pool.
the brush his teeth in the swimming pool. Kevin Nealon yells back at him, "You better not be a psycho." It's like that's on him.
Yeah, that was one of those.
Him.
Yeah,
which I just feel like it's just such a well-developed character in a film where you don't necessarily get a ton of character development. I think that's a fair criticism of it.
Who has a non-Nealon scene that's good?
I did really like the scene where Bucky was teaching Kathy how to balance the trays and sort of making a little obstacle course.
Well, the montage, yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really sweet of him. And, I mean, we can sit and debate all day whether or not Christina Ricci's character should have had loftier aspirations and actual ambitions. But, I think it was a scene that was meant to demonstrate that Bucky is very thoughtful and that he's a sensitive person. And, I appreciated that. I thought that was really sweet of him,
Fair enough.
Hudson, was there any particular scene or character that really stood out for you as enjoyable or meaningful for you?
Liked very briefly seeing the guy who was the shaman from what do you call it, from Grandma's Boy. Couple of like very small cameos.
Yeah.
The part where I guess he pops up in the scene where Dick Shadow is discussing how he discovered his talents. Well, he has what's the line about like nothing grows in the shadow of
nothing grows in my shade, in the shade of my cock shade. My cock shade.
My cock shade, right.
Yeah.
It's just it's a level of profoundly dumb that I'm still particularly fond of.
I mean, there's the cameos are great. Like obviously Peter Dante's in that scene as well. The party, and then you've got like Alan Covert from Grandma's Boy, who has this very small role in the film as the porno shop cashier.
Yes, yeah.
And like his interaction with Bucky is amazing. He's like, "We don't sell kiddie porn," and Bucky's response to him is like, "Oh, I don't have a cat." Like that's. Like he just misunderstood. It's a brilliant just misunderstanding. I mean, I think that's the thing about Bucky's character that I like so much. Like, I mean, yes, people are ragging on him, but it's just like his naivete is just so on display. Like he goes in for the mac and cheese commercial and he just doesn't know his sense of place. So he goes in the porno shop and he's like, I want to be a star. And then he goes to the mac and cheese commercial and he's like, okay, I'm going to drop my pants and start doing whatever he's doing. Which is, I mean, I guess it's masturbation, but it's hard to tell.
Rubbing and
He called it whacking.
Yes.
And Claudio, like that character Claudio was just so smarmy and where he tells like his female assistant, who is obviously horrified that Bucky has started cranking his hog.
Yeah.
Tells her you're being a killjoy, and it's like, well, I mean, there's this guy who's just, he's just, he's just jerking off in front of you, and I calling her a killjoy for being grossed out by that, like, it just felt like sort of the least common denominator of like edgelord humor,
For sure.
I mean, I think that's it. I think you described the movie.
Yeah.
I think
well,
I think
my
my one of my favorite things, and it was only through a second. I had to watch it twice. We always watch the movies twice for this thing. And the second time I watched it, I cheated and I just watched like a shit ton of clips
what?
on YouTube. And absolutely, I cheated. I'm not watching this thing again. But I rewatched the scene, which I think is phenomenal now that I've seen it twice, where the woman is in line at the Bucky Larson DVD signing.
Oh yeah.
And talks to Bucky Larson and thanks him because it makes her appreciate her husband's very small penis.
Right.
Or her
Thanks him for his gross niblet.
Yes.
Oh my God.
And I was very aided by marijuana, but was like cracking up at how deep she goes. And the dude just no sells it. He just kind of looks at her like, ooh, you're really airing it out, aren't you? There it all is. All right. It was great.
It's that monologue is the monologue at the meet and greet is made. That's
Julia.
Julia Wolof.
The only reason I know her name is because it's on the necklace she's wearing.
And it's also her actual name. Like she's someone who appears in a lot of these Happy Madison movies. So she's a regular in these. But like there's a line in that early on where she goes, my boyfriend's got a really small dick, like no meat on it. And that felt to me immediately like that right away. I was like, that's like a Tim Robinson, I think you should leave bit.
Totally. It was 100% that. And he just sort of like, that's the only time he reacts. He kind of looks at her like, and then she keeps going. He's like, oh, like he's learning alongside her.
Yeah, like he's unaware.
It's so good. Oh man, that really got me.
But see, that's the thing is I came out of this of rewatch because I watched this film back in. I rented it probably like a Netflix back when they used to send you DVDs in the mail in like 2012. So like a year.
That was the time, yeah.
The year after it came out. So I watched it back then. For rewatching it now, like considering how my tastes in humor have changed and with the or have evolved, I should say, and the existence of things like Tim Robinson's I Think You Should Leave, or Auntie Donna's Big Old House of Fun, like these very absurdist sorts of comedies that can have some gross elements to it.
Smiling Friends.
Yeah, Smiling Friends. Like those are like, that's my world. Is I appreciate this movie more now than I did then because it actually feels closer to kind of this very absurdist thing where like you could have a scene like that where someone will just do like 2.5 minutes of my boyfriend has a small penis, but my God, what you have
It turned into a stand-up comic.
Yeah.
It was incredible.
What you have is so small that it makes, she's saying, it makes my dick look big. Makes me look like I have a big dick. And it's just like, it's so well done. It's so well done.
Why doesn't this person
such a straight
dominate
face,
the film?
like great comedic delivery there.
Stole the show. Easily the best performance in this whole film by far.
That film to me is like an inverse Boogie Nights. It's like a porn parody Boogie Nights, like a porn parody of a porn parody of Boogie Nights. Don Johnson as Miles Deep doing the Burt Reynolds
there might be
thing.
Another level of parody in there.
The opposite, yeah. There's like there's layers to it. It's a multi-layered, multifaceted comedy. And then you've got Bucky's micro penis compared to Mark Wahlberg's character having a
giant
dick.
And so like it's directly tied to that. Like it's hard not to see that.
No, well, first of all, I didn't see it, I guess.
Well,
but
you only watched it 1.5 times apparently. So
well, I will say that,
I just don't want it tied to that other movie because Boogie Nights is like an actual movie and stuff.
I was just bummed that like you could tell that they were inspired and trying to parody Boogie Nights. Um, I was really curious and wondering how you guys feel about this. How there weren't any of the more like I think that they could have gone further making it a parody. Like I was really surprised that there were no scenes of drugs happening. Like you could have had so much fun with like mountains of cocaine in like 70s porn and um just other types of really hilarious jokes along those lines. um and there wasn't even any of that. I was like the joke is
Yeah,
right
with some
there.
forethought, this could have been a movie.
I mean, I think also when you're dealing with this sort of subject matter, you're towing the line of potentially getting into NC-17 territory.
Right.
This is an R-rated movie, and I don't think they could have made this a PG-13 film if they tried. It's like, yes, like Swardson had previously, he was a co-writer on Malibu's Most Wanted. That was kind of his big break in the very beginning. So Malibu's Most Wanted and Grandma's Boy. So he sort of understood there was a certain level of what you can get away with. But like once you start bringing in drugs and you start bringing in like actual sex scenes, then it becomes harder to keep that from going completely off. So I think they probably had some level of restrictions to work with there.
That's too bad. I think that, I think a really good cocaine scene would have just,
It would have been funny. It would have
along with the makeover montage. I don't know why they didn't give his character a makeover. I think they could have given him a makeover and kept the hair and the teeth. But maybe kind of porn starred him up a little bit. I was really surprised we didn't get one of those. That would have
They
been
had, I mean, the other like the makeup artist character was quite a
I loved that
sweet
character.
character as well.
Mm.
Quite a lovely person, it seemed like. And kept getting shitted on as well.
The ensemble of characters around him, I think, are wonderful. I think we get a lot of that to interact with him. But what I actually like about this film is that there's a lot of very easy places it could have gone, and it chose not to go to those places. They could have had him become corrupted by winning those adult film awards, and he becomes a different person. Like it's a very common trope of sort of like this like innocent person then becomes this terrible thing and then has to come back around at the end. Like he never stopped being who he was. Like at no point did he. And like that actually is something that they could have very easily gone that route. And I think that's where like things like drugs become off limits in terms of character development, because it's like, well, you don't really want to do anything with them.
But is that defending what they did in this film? Because like the last 20 minutes of this movie are first of all like at this point just ended after the award show. And it's like, it's a tidy hour and 20 minutes. I don't feel too bad. But then there's an extra 20 minutes where they do more things. And all of those things are wildly confusing.
Yeah, the part where Kathy breaks up with him, like, and Miles.
And then his boss is like, I just told her to break up with you, basically.
Didn't make any sense, came completely out of left field. And yeah, it was very strange. And the scene where they're all having breakfast, I think like breakfast or lunch the next morning, and Bucky's talking about it and he starts crying and everyone is making fun of him, but the only person that gives him any sort of look of concern or empathy is the porn star that was sitting at the table, the woman.
It's truly a mystifying end to, I mean, I guess I can't expect much from a goat blowing a guy at the beginning of the movie to then. You know what I mean? Like,
you're really fixated on that, huh?
It was the start of the movie, Gary.
But like other things happened.
The start of the movie really just like has big January 2016 or January 6, 2021 energy for sure. Like where were you at 12 p.m. on January 2021?
I know where they
getting your dick sucked by a goat, or where else were you?
The ending of the film is saved only by the presence again of Kevin Nealon.
Yeah, and Christina Ricci.
Right, which I still want to know why she's there.
Yeah, but look, it's pretty clear why she's there. So like the thing is that when she sits down with Dick's shadow, Stephen Dorff, and they're sitting across from each other at the end of her shift, and she's counting her tips. Like, I loved that because it actually, that scene between the two of them does a lot of explaining about her character and her motivations. She says at one point she explains why she broke up with him in that moment. And when she broke up with Bucky, she said, I knew it was more important for him to continue helping the world than for me to have happiness. It was a moment of selflessness, because she was recognizing that what these movies that he was making was doing for relationships all over the world was extraordinary. And then it takes him
all over the world.
That's what she said, all over the world. Look, you saw there was at least one box of those movies was being sent to Moscow. I saw the post that said to Moscow from Hollywood. So clearly it is worldwide success.
Gary.
I mean, Keegan-Michael Key's, like, his cameo, I mean, he was just completely starstruck by Bucky, you know?
Yeah, he was making a difference. And I mean, that was part of what, again, adds to this narrative of him being just this sweet and good person. His orgasms may be horrifying, but,
Oh my God, I'm going to never sleep again.
It's because anytime you bring up something good about this film, like 10 seconds later, you have to remind everyone, like, oh, don't watch it, everybody, by the way.
No, I think people should watch it. I mean, again, like, that ending is lovely. They ride off
movie.
They ride off into the sunset on a white horse. Like, they're like, will you do me a favor? Will you give me a ride home to Iowa? And he says, with honors. And then they set off into the sunset on a white horse down the street. It's such a great way of parodying the romantic comedy aspect of it, which again makes you kind of forget a bit about how he was making monkey noises the first time he saw a pair of breasts.
Bucky's orgasms are like, that's my sleep paralysis demon for sure. Like, that is the nightmare that I have. Those times when my brain waves are neither asleep nor awake. That is the terror that I hallucinate, is Bucky having an erection and ejaculating. It is a horror in and of itself. And those writers should go straight to hell for that. Inexcusable. I mean, So
should we vote, Gary?
I feel like we've been hearing a lot from the two of you on everything you didn't like about this film. And I feel like maybe Hudson Mohawke might be more in my corner on this. And actually, I get the sense that you liked it more than these guys did, right?
It's no grandma's boy. Which I guess that
what is
well, yeah, and also I guess that has kind of possibly held up a little better because of it being focused around kind of incel gamers and that kind of thing, which kind of was way before its time. But I laughed a lot at this. I'm a fan of like we said, there's no it's just profoundly dumb, and there's no consideration of even like trying to make a good movie. And I think that is in itself funny.
Fair enough.
I agree, because I think a lot of the criticisms that I'm hearing about this are not meeting this movie on its own level and on its own terms.
You know what? You're right there. That's exactly what I'm doing. And I know that I'm doing it, but those are my feelings.
I'm not. I'm better than
right.
I'm better than it.
I know you 100%. Think you are, but what I'm saying is I
am better than this.
It's like, this is a film that starts with the goat blowing scene. Like, I'm sorry, but like, then you can't be thinking too hard about character development. It's like, it's basically saying this is a sophomoric gross out comedy. And that's all it is.
What would we talk about, Gary? We have to fill 2 hours talking, and you're just like, don't do anything. Don't be mad that you're not laughing or having a good time.
No, I'm saying it's just to appreciate it for what it is.
Like, it's your fault this movie blows.
This is directed by the guy who did The Hot Chick. Like, I'm just saying, like,
there are funny, gross out sex comedies. There are. This is not one of them. I did not laugh. I did not laugh. Like American Pie, hilarious. Like I watched that. I think I went to the theater like 4 times to watch it when it first came out. And I mean, the jokes even today, I don't know if they still hold up. They might, but at least they were funny then. I don't even think these jokes were funny when this movie came out. I mean,
do you know, Gary, do you know how, I mean, how did it perform when it came out?
Oh, it was pretty dismal.
Oh man!
Yeah.
So it's a film
imagine.
that had it was for a long time, it had a 0% Rotten Tomatoes score because most of the ratings were overwhelmingly negative. The budget for the film was $10 million, and it was like I think number 15 or number 16 in its opening week. It ultimately grossed at the box office about 2.5 million, so a pretty wide gap between those. And it was nominated for, you won't be surprised, multiple Razzies.
Great.
In the next year.
But
I hope it's swept the category.
It lost to the A-Team, Adam Sandler.
It lost to Jack and Jill because only Jack and Jill has Al Pacino lusting for Adam Sandler in a dress while also shilling Dunkachinos.
Elmer Fudding. We call it Elmer Fudding.
Elmer Fudding.
He got bugsed in the dress.
You know, I was really curious about the movie. So after I watched it, I started doing a little bit of research about it. And Nick Swardson, he kind of got a little gully about how the movie was critically received. He was a little, he did. He was like, well, these critics are the same people that are reviewing Avatar and The King's Speech. Like, of course they're not going to think that this is like whatever. And it's like, no, maybe it's just a bad movie. Like,
yeah,
he got a little bouted about it.
Did.
I'm disappointed to hear that because I would have thought, you go into making something like that knowing that it's
right.
Yeah.
No, he was mad.
I watched an interview and he was quoted as basically saying, we knew the critics were not going to like this because of the way it was directed and the way we acted and the way it was written. Actual quote. And then after the movie comes out, he's like, I don't like the critics. I'm like, well,
right.
You already said that this isn't going to work.
The movie wasn't even screened for critics, which is like, theater or studios don't do that unless they know it's
a death knell.
It is.
So I want to do this movie a little just I'm going to actually give it a little bit of credit to Gary's surprise. This is the lowest stunned silence at this point. Is the lowest rated of all of the Adam Sandler universe of movies, the Happy Madison Productions movies.
Wow.
I think that it should trade places with Paul Blart Mall Cop 2.
Oh, yeah.
And be the second worst because that movie is a cruel, horrible movie about the worst things in society. That aside, it's 4% compared to 3%. So I think those two I think they should flip.
I will say, if I was going to say anything negative about it, I feel that by comparison to what those guys were capable of writing, it's a little lazy.
I feel the same
little kind of boilerplate, but I still laughed a lot.
I laughed a lot. Like I guess the thing I keep going back to is I laughed a lot. Like I think about lines in this, like the line where he says, everybody keeps talking about my accent, but I'm from America. That made me laugh.
Such brilliant lines of calling vaginas a smell garden. Oh,
but you see, we just laughed at that. Like,
listen, I've said this since the beginning of the podcast. It's funnier coming from us. One of the reasons it's not funny is because they're like, it's just so poorly delivered to me. There's no like fun in most of the characters. It's just like.
But what about when Bucky is sitting poolside while he's coaching Christina Ricci, who moved to Hollywood to become a waitress as opposed to moving to Hollywood to become an actress or a rock star?
Theoretically, that's very funny. But
it's funny. But he's sitting by the pool, and she's learning to like carry the multiple things on her tray. And he's dressed up as an old lady, and he's like, "I'm an old lady, and I love soup." Like I laughed my ass off at that point. I'm sorry, that to me was just so damn funny.
That might have been where I
missed it, man.
blacked out. I mean, to be fair, I was really drunk last night when I was watching this. I was wasted. Just
when he
FYI.
wins the award for best taint, and he
Yes.
says he must have gotten it from his mother.
Yes. like just his obliviousness what plays in the favor. Like, I feel like some of the gross terms that get used are one thing, but like it just the way it comes back through him, it's like he doesn't have the vocabulary for these things. So it's like when he wins awards, and it's like he obviously his excitement for seeing Pauly Shore is great.
He didn't know what the taint was.
He doesn't know what it is, but he's sure he got it from his mom. Like that's funny. That's funny.
I'm surprised that he didn't know what the taint was, because during the scene when they're watching the movie in the basement, one of the characters, one of the friends says something about a dirt button. So I feel like I'm surprised that, which I hope to never hear those two words together ever again. I'm surprised that nobody took the moment to explain that the taint is nearby of proximity to the dirt button.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the year of learning things, I guess, for Bucky Larson.
Year of realizing shit.
Exactly. And then, like, of course, Christina Ricci's character also being a virgin, but yet having the ingenuity to fashion a condom with a lighter and the tip of a straw.
Now we're talking about something good.
That was just terrible physical comedy delivery, just all around. Like,
no, I just couldn't believe the way she came up with that as an idea in that moment.
His face when he's like, it fits.
Yes, it fits. Like, I get that there's a lot of things that are off-putting about this film, and like the idea of them having sex is just so implausible by that point.
Another one where upon rewatch, I was a little kinder to that on rewatch. I was like, that was
what is
his
she
face
doing?
is
not
good.
Doing
there.
what I think she's doing. This is not going to go the way. Oh, it went that way. Okay.
But you have to understand that we've been barraged at that point with about a full movie's worth of this. So like when I watch these clips taken out of the movie, they're funnier because they're clips. I know I don't have another 10 minutes of more plot explication coming at me now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like it's funnier when it's in 2 minutes and not an hour and 40 minutes of that joke over and over again.
The premise of the film, of course, is that having a small penis is emasculating, and that it is seen as a weakness, and it's like, I guess my question is that kind of, I mean, and I'm speaking purely about cisgender heterosexual male,
right?
Is it funny to you to have that sort of emasculation parodied and made fun of? Like, is that funny to y'all?
There's a ton of things that can be funny, like an infinitude of funny things if you make it funny, and they didn't. So in this case, no, but like, penis jokes can be very funny.
Penis jokes can be hilarious.
I think the concept of it is funny. I think they didn't necessarily execute it all that well, but yeah, the concept is suitable.
I don't know. They made him look like Porky Pig and like act like Porky Pig.
The merkin that they paint onto his jet. I listened to him talk about them actually what they did to portray his genitals in the film. And they basically he said Nick Swardson said that they painted
funnier than the movie.
They painted a dick on his dick, and it took like 30 minutes to do. And the person doing it kept saying, "I'm so sorry," as he was basically putting this like bizarre merkin thing on there. And I think the reveal of the merkin to me was funnier than the idea that he's just has a micro penis. It was just the reveal of this thing that like.
Wait a minute. Wait. There was a scene where you see it.
Yeah. There is
just for a second.
I mean, just for a second.
Thrown off the rooftop.
It's burned in my brain.
I didn't. Did I watch like a sanitized version of it? Or?
Oh, I hope not.
I think I might have, because I don't. That's I just like
it's a split second.
It's a blink and you'll miss it.
I don't think that's in the version that's on Amazon. That's the one that I watched. I think they cut that out.
Well, I watched the one that was on Apple, and I see it. I mean, you see it, but you don't see it very long. So it's entirely possible that
really quick.
I was, like I said, I was really drunk when I watched it.
Sure.
So
No.
That's okay.
No.
I think that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I could have blacked out. Something told me
fair.
that this is not a movie to watch for me sober. So
Well, I think that's fair. Okay, so I think it's time that we have the final vote on this. And the question ultimately is whether this is a good bad movie. We know it's a bad movie. We can all agree on that. But is it a good bad movie? So let's go around and weigh it.
If it was on in a hotel room or on a flight or something, I would 100% watch it again.
Word.
Absolutely.
I'm in the same camp. I think it's a good bad movie. I've watched it now multiple times. I laughed at it. I will remember some of these scenes over time. Is it like as good as Grandma's Boy? No, but I would also be the kind of person who would make the argument that Grandma's Boy is actually not a bad movie. But that's a whole other discussion. It's why we didn't watch Grandma's Boy in this episode. So in my view, I think in the same inclination as Hudson Mohawke here, in that this is a movie that I would watch again. I wouldn't necessarily go and see it in a theater, but I would go and watch again, which I think meets the threshold in my mind for a good bad movie.
I would not watch this again. I think it's, when I think of good bad movies, I think of Showgirl,
Mm-hmm.
like Showgirls is, I mean, if that, if I was just flipping around on TV and that was on HBO, like that, my night is set, if I came across this and it was on, I would not tune in. I think it's
Pretty
just,
much. Yeah. Go ahead.
there's so many good bad movies, and I would just, if I had to watch one of them, I would rather watch anything else but this movie. I would probably rather drill nails into my eyeballs than watch this movie again.
So that's a no for you. Okay.
It's a no. It's a no for me, dog.
I will probably never skip when I see in my, like, if YouTube brings it up in my algorithm where it's like Kevin Nealon funny moments, Bucky Larson, I would watch that again. I would watch his parts and his parts alone again.
Okay. And the monologue at the meet and greet.
Monologue, and that's it. I don't want anything else from the film. So no.
Well, now that you just said that, the algorithm is going to make sure that.
I said it out loud. It's recorded. I'm all in. Like, send me those two scenes
straight to your FBI file. Like, it is going to be in all of your targeted ads now.
If I'm ever brought in for questioning and torture, they'll just play that movie and cut those scenes out. And I'll just watch the rest of that piece of shit.
And I just want to make clear, by being on this podcast, you all now have an FBI file.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I'm reading the grape.
No,
that movie had weird effects on me, and one of them was I've been craving grapes.
Yeah, well, that's the impact of a good film, a good bad movie. I wanted to tell you a little.
Okay,
fun
first of all,
fact.
we landed 50-50. That was not a good bad movie.
No, I think
so. Technically, you lost.
No.
Voted.
It's not
a good bad movie.
No, if we're following British soccer rules, that's down the middle. It is a tie.
When did we start following British soccer? We had one Scottish guy on. Now we're British soccer experts.
I mean, look, I think that.
What does down the middle mean? No, that's not no.
Two of us liked the film and thought it fell in the category of good bad movie, and two of us didn't.
You're saying we have ties?
Yeah, there's ties. Yeah,
the way the gentleman's agreement was drawn up is the vote means if it's not a good bad movie, you lose.
No. That's not how.
That's how we.
Maybe in your mind of how you.
We don't have a contract here.
No, exactly.
That's the way I came into this understanding.
Well, if you came into under a false understanding, I'm sorry for you. But the reality is that.
What do you mean a false understanding? This is literally a 50-50 split.
At this point,
in both cases.
In Tremors, we had a 2-1.
Totally.
It's not a good.
And then you stacked the deck,
and I won, and then so I won that episode, and this one's a tie. So we're still 1-0 with a tie. It's soccer rules. I mean, come on now.
No. You can't just say the word soccer over and over again and hope I get bored enough not to argue.
Well, I thought you
It's
liked
not gonna
soccer.
work.
I thought you liked soccer and grapes. And
I
grapes.
do love grapes.
Can I tell you a little fun fact about this movie?
Probably not. If it's gonna be fun,
Yeah.
probably not. Go ahead.
So the director of the film, speaking of football, the director's name is Tom Brady, but he's not the football player Tom Brady.
Right.
And
that's like his whole Instagram is that, right? Not that Tom Brady.
I suspect so. Well, so he directed The Hot Chick, he directed The Comeback. So before he did this
Thanks,
movie.
dude.
But before he started working
True
with the Happy
contributions
Madison,
to the oeuvre.
but before he started working with Happy Madison, do you know what he did work on? He was a writer and co-producer on The Critic.
You know what? Good for him.
Yeah.
It's a shame that he later was just made stuff I hated.
Well, I mean,
because I mean that's a promising beginning to then turn in this clunker.
Well, I think again for now we're now 1-0, and I'm feeling pretty good about my prospects in this. But now it's your turn to pick a movie.
Well, it's really hard not to believe that you're picking movies specifically as vengeance against me.
I picked one movie. This
is you, but that's the opening shot. We just talked about the opening shot of that last movie, setting the tone. The tone's been set.
I picked one movie and it was a tie.
I believe that there's a high road and a low road that I can take right now. The high road, I mean, neither is a particularly amazing film, but the high road has a lot of fun zaniness, and the low road is pure and utter zane. There's only zany.
Billy Zane?
Not quite that zany.
Okay. Because I feel like at some point
but it's it's all the way lowbrow. Mm-hmm. And I haven't seen it, much like you with Bucky Larson. I haven't seen it in a very long time.
Okay.
So I think I'm gonna go to the low road here.
Oh wow.
Okay. Low road, our next guest.
So see, I'm telling you that I'm not doing vengeance, and you're going vengeance. You're just actually
totally
leading into that.
I'm gonna stay with this theme that you've picked of overly sophomoric, to the point of just freshman.
Okay. All right.
This movie has John Candy in it.
Okay, great.
The catch is John Candy is a talking horse named Don. Mm-hmm. And he will be talking a lot to Bobcat Goldthwait and Dabney Coleman. We're going to watch Hot to Trot.
Jeff?
Yeah.
Did you know that Hot to Trot is one of my favorite movies?
No.
I talk about it constantly.
We're going to have so much fun.
I am delighted to be talking about Hot to Trot with you. I think you might score a win next time.
I think so too. I
think you might have a winner.
I think this movie is a straight up ripper. It is just go, go, go from the second it starts, and it never stops being ridiculous.
Do you know what Bobcat Goldthwait calls Hot to Trot?
No, I don't.
He calls it that fucking horse movie.
We'll see y'all next time, man. This is going to be tough.
Take care, everybody.
It's the Cabbages Podcast Network.